In the vast expanse of the Milky Way, a council of alien Amazons, known as the Zathari, had convened. Renowned for their martial prowess and genetic superiority, the Zathari ruled over their sector with unmatched authority. On this day, their agenda was extraordinary and earth-shattering, literally for one unsuspecting human. The Grand Chamber, a marvel of Zathari architecture, buzzed with activity. The walls, adorned with holographic displays of distant galaxies and genetic codexes, reflected the advanced technological prowess of the Zathari. At the heart of the room stood the High Matriarch Shirella, her tall frame cloaked in shimmering armor that responded dynamically to her movements. "Sisters, the time has come to address the decline of our warrior caste," Shirella's voice echoed powerfully. "Our scientists have scoured the galaxy for the strongest genes. After extensive research, we have identified a species with potential warriors that could enhance our genetic tapestry. Humans." A murmur ran through the assembly as the mention of such a primitive and emotional species drew scoffs and bewildered gazes. Shirella raised her hand, silencing the crowd. "Yes, they are lesser developed, but among them is a male, possessing a unique genetic blueprint. This human's resilience and adaptability are exceptional, even by our standards. Our scouts have observed him overcoming odds that would break many of our own." Images of Earth and its diverse ecosystems flashed on the displays, finally focusing on a single individual, a young man engaged in what appeared to be a competitive sport, displaying remarkable agility and strength. "This is Eric Sanders, a champion among his kind. Today, we initiate the Galactic Draft. He will be brought to us, and his integration will forge a new lineage for the Zathari." Without waiting for a response, Shirella motioned to the Commandant. "Proceed with the extraction." Meanwhile, on Earth, Eric Sanders was completely oblivious to his looming fate. A celebrated athlete, his life was a routine of training, competition, and media appearances. As he prepared for another day, the sky above his city twisted strangely, colors merging into a vortex as a Zathari spacecraft descended silently. Eric's morning run in the city park turned surreal when shadows formed around him, and before he could react, a beam of light enveloped him, lifting him off the ground. His last sight of Earth was the shrinking park below, his heartbeat in his ears, drowning out the distant cries of shock from onlookers. He awoke in a stark room, the walls emitting a soft glow, providing the only light. His athletic build was restrained by bands that adjusted to every twitch and movement, more advanced than any technology he'd ever seen. "You are on board the Zathari flagship, Relentless," a voice announced, materializing from the walls as if the room itself was speaking. "High Matriarch Shirella has chosen you to participate in a vital initiative for the future of both our races." Confusion and fear mingled as Eric tried to process his predicament. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice steady despite his racing mind. The room shifted, and Shirella appeared on a display before him. "Eric Sanders, your genetic potential has been deemed superior. You are to join the ranks of the Zathari through the rites of integration. Your descendants will be warriors of renown." Aboard the Zathari flagship, Relentless, Eric's initial shock began to dissipate, replaced by a steely resolve. If he was to navigate this alien landscape, he would need to understand the forces that had chosen him and the nature of the trials ahead. In the heart of the ship, the integration chamber was a coliseum of technology, where Zathari warriors were melded with elite traits from across the galaxy. Eric, escorted by armored guards, stepped onto the platform, the air humming with bioelectric energy. Shirella observed from her command station, her interest in Eric's reactions palpable. "Initiate the first trial," she commanded. The walls of the chamber pulsed, and holograms sprang to life around Eric, creating a vivid landscape that mimicked the harsh terrains of Zathar Prime. Eric found himself in a simulated battle environment. Mechanical beasts, simulations of Zathari predators, emerged from the digital foliage. His only instructions were to survive. Relying on his instincts and earth-trained reflexes, he maneuvered through the landscape, finding that his movements triggered enhancements in his agility and strength, courtesy of the chamber's adaptive technology. Meanwhile, Shirella analyzed Eric's performance, intrigued by his unorthodox tactics and resilience. "Increase the difficulty," she instructed. The scenario intensified, pushing Eric to the limits of his endurance and beyond. As the trial progressed, Eric experienced fleeting visions, genetic memories encoded into the enhancements he was receiving. He saw Zathari warriors in battle, felt their triumphs and defeats, their strategic genius merging with his own instincts. Emerging from the trial, battered but unbroken, Eric faced Jirella. "You survive, human, but survival is only the first step. To truly integrate, you must understand and embrace our ways." She led him through the corridors of the Relentless to the Hall of Lineages, where the histories of the greatest Zathari families were kept. "Your lineage will begin with you, but it will not be solely of your making," she explained, showing him the genetic templates ready to be combined with his own DNA. "The next trial will test not just your body, but your spirit and intellect," Jirella continued. "You will negotiate an alliance between conflicting Zathari clans, a simulation reflecting real conflicts. Success will demonstrate your capacity to lead and unify." Back in the chamber, Eric was thrust into a complex political drama, his opponent's projections of the fiercest Zathari matriarchs. Each interaction was a duel of wits and will. Eric leveraged his newfound knowledge, applying human empathy and strategic insights gained from his genetic enhancements. As he navigated these encounters, Eric began to reshape his identity, integrating his earthly essence with the formidable legacy of the Zathari. With each success, he felt a growing connection to the alien culture that had claimed him, a sense of belonging that was both unexpected and profound. The trials continued, each one designed to stretch the limits of his capabilities and accelerate his transformation. Eric stood within the genetic forge, a crucible of evolutionary science where the Zathari manipulated life itself. Here, the final and most critical phase of his integration would occur. As he entered the vast chamber, lines of bioluminescent light traced patterns on the floor, guiding him to the center where a towering structure of organic metal pulsed with life. Jirella, ever present in her observation, watched as Eric approached the forge. "This is where you will truly become one of us. Your human limitations will be stripped away, and in their place you will gain strengths born of Zathari science and valor," she declared through the communication system. The forge activated, encasing Eric in a cocoon of energy and nanomaterials. His body was bombarded with genetic modifiers, each one targeting specific traits: enhanced cellular regeneration, increased cognitive function, and a vastly expanded lifespan. The process was agonizing, as his human DNA was unwoven and rewoven with Zathari genetic strands. Inside the cocoon, Eric's mind was assaulted by a barrage of alien memories and knowledge. He witnessed centuries of Zathari history in moments, battles in distant stars, the rise and fall of empires, and the relentless pursuit of genetic perfection. With each memory, his understanding of the Zathari deepened, and his resistance to the process waned. When the transformation concluded, the cocoon receded, and Eric stepped out, his eyes shimmering with a new, fierce light. His body was no longer solely human. It bore the marks of Zathari heritage: tougher skin, sharper eyes, and an aura of raw power. Jirella approached him, her expression one of stern approval. "See yourself not as you were, but as you are now, a bridge between species, a harbinger of what might come." Eric examined his hands, feeling the surge of new strength coursing through him. He turned to a reflective surface, seeing not just his reflection, but a blend of human resolve and alien grace. The transformation was complete, but the implications of what he had become were only just beginning to unfold in his mind. "Now," Jirella continued, "you will train under the Commandant. You must learn not only to control your new abilities, but to excel in them. You are to be a leader, Eric of Earth, and a symbol of our might." Training commenced under the relentless tutelage of the Zathari Commandant, a veteran of 1,000 skirmishes. Eric learned to wield his new abilities, mastering the advanced combat techniques and strategic doctrines of the Zathari. Each session pushed him harder, testing his limits and the limits of his new form. Through combat, Eric not only honed his physical capabilities, but also forged a bond with the Zathari warriors. Respect was earned in the training ring, where words were few and actions spoke volumes. Slowly, Eric's alien comrades began to see him not as an outsider, but as one of their own, a warrior born of Earth but remade by the stars. As Eric adapted to his new life among the stars, far from the world he had known, as Eric's training neared its completion, the political landscape of the Zathari Dominion began to shift. Stirred by the winds of change Eric himself had unknowingly set in motion. The integration of a human into their elite ranks was a bold experiment that had not gone unnoticed across the galaxy. While many Zathari viewed his rise as a strengthening of their lineage, others saw it as a contamination of their pure bloodline. The Commandant, now both mentor and strategic ally to Eric, briefed him on the delicate balance of power. "Your presence has become a fulcrum," he explained, his voice a low rumble in the dim light of the strategy room. "There are factions within the High Council who fear what you represent, a potential new direction for our people." As Eric absorbed the complexities of his position, an urgent communique arrived from the border sectors. A coalition of rival alien races, long held at bay by the Zathari's military superiority, had begun to test the defenses, probing for weakness. The timing was suspect, likely influenced by the internal dissent over Eric's ascendancy. Shirella summoned Eric to the council chamber, where holograms of the galaxy spun slowly above the assembly. "Eric of Earth, the time has come to prove the value of our investment. You will lead a contingent to the troubled sectors and quell this uprising. Show them the might of the Zathari, and your own." Clad in battle armor that was a hybrid of Zathari design and human aesthetics, Eric prepared to depart. The armor was sleek, resilient, and bore the insignia of both his heritage and his adopted race. His ship, the Vanguard, was crewed by Zathari warriors loyal to Jirella and sympathetic to Eric's cause. As the Vanguard slipped into the slipstream towards the border sectors, Eric reviewed the data on the coalition forces. They were diverse, each race bringing unique capabilities and strategies to the conflict. It was a challenge that would test his tactical acumen and his ability to unify the disparate elements of his command. Arriving at the conflict zone, Eric deployed his forces with precision, engaging the enemy in skirmishes that leveraged his knowledge of both human and Zathari warfare tactics. The battles were fierce, illuminating the space with the fire of ship cannons and the brilliant maneuvers of fighter craft. Amidst the chaos, Eric led from the front, his ship darting through enemy lines, a spearhead that disrupted and demoralized the opposing forces. His command style was unorthodox, blending aggression with an uncanny ability to anticipate enemy moves, a testament to his dual heritage. Back on the flagship, Eric faced a different challenge: diplomacy. Captured enemy leaders were brought before him, and he employed a mix of firmness and empathy, seeking to turn enemies into allies. His efforts were met with skepticism, but also curiosity about his unique position as a bridge between cultures. The campaign drew to a close with a decisive victory in the Battle of Tyrak, where Eric's forces broke the back of the coalition's will to fight. The victory was not just tactical, but symbolic, proving that a human could not only survive, but thrive and lead in the Zathari realm. Returning to the Zathari homeworld, Eric was met with mixed receptions, cheers from some, cold stares from others. Shirella, however, regarded him with undisguised pride. "You have done more than defend our borders, Eric. You have sparked a conversation about what it means to be Zathari, and perhaps what it might mean in the future." Amidst the accolades and debates, Eric knew that his fight was far from over. It was not just about battles won in space, but about the hearts and minds he needed to win over. His thoughts often turned to Earth, to the life he had left behind, and he wondered if he would ever bridge the gap between his past and his present. As he stood looking out over the capital, the stars above seemed both a promise and a challenge, waiting for his next move in the intricate dance of galactic politics. The capital of the Zathari Dominion buzzed with the undercurrents of change. Eric, now a celebrated commander, felt the weight of new responsibilities. His victory at Tyrak had not only quelled the immediate threat, but also ignited discussions on reform within the Zathari leadership. In the great hall of the council, Eric stood before the assembly, his presence commanding attention. His proposal was radical yet necessary, to formalize alliances with the races of the recently subdued coalition. Such a move would expand Zathari influence through diplomacy rather than force, and potentially stabilize the region for generations. Unity and diversity, Eric addressed the council, his voice resonating off the high, arched ceilings. Our strength has always been in our superiority, but imagine how much stronger we could be with the myriad talents of these races allied with us rather than against us. Skepticism was rife among the traditionalists. Matriarch Venari, a formidable figure with staunch old-world views, challenged him. You propose to dilute our purity with these lesser beings. You, a half-breed, would lead us into dilution? Eric met her gaze, unflinching. I propose to enhance our purity with diversity. We have seen that unity brings strength. This is not dilution, it is evolution. Debates raged, but Shirella's support was pivotal. Her endorsement, coupled with Eric's demonstrated success, gradually turned the tide. A resolution was passed to explore alliances under strict terms. Eric would lead the diplomatic missions. Preparing for his new role, Eric delved into the cultures and histories of the races he aimed to ally with. His ship became both a command center and a diplomatic vessel. The first race on his agenda were the Traxians, renowned engineers whose skills had nearly breached Zathari defenses during the conflict. Landing on Traxia, Eric was greeted with cautious optimism. The Traxians, with their intricate exoskeletons and precise movements, were curious about the human who had adopted Zathari ways. Eric's negotiations focused on mutual benefits, Zathari protection for Traxian technology sharing. After intense discussions, an agreement was drafted, marking the first successful alliance in his ambitious plan. Next were the Miri, fluid thinkers whose ability to manipulate electromagnetic fields could prove invaluable. The Miri were more skeptical, their past grievances with the Zathari a hurdle Eric needed to overcome. He offered them a place in the Zathari technological guilds, a gesture of goodwill and recognition of their skills. Slowly, barriers broke down, and another alliance was forged. As Eric traveled from one race to another, his reputation grew, not just as a warrior, but as a peacemaker. His dual heritage, once seen as a disadvantage, became his greatest asset, allowing him to empathize with different perspectives. Amidst his travels, Eric kept in touch with Earth. He shared his experiences and the lessons he learned about unity and diversity. His messages were broadcasted, his story resonating with many back home, spreading hope and a new vision for humanity's place in the cosmos. Returning to the Zathari capital with his mission accomplished, Eric was not the same man who had left. He had started as a drafted human, became a Zathari warrior, and now emerged as a galactic diplomat. The alliances he formed were not just political agreements but bridges between worlds, each one a step toward a more integrated galaxy. As he presented the treaties to the High Council, the Assembly, once divided, applauded his achievements. Even Eric stood on the observation deck of the Zathari capital, watching as the first joint fleet of the new alliance maneuvered against the backdrop of a nebula, its colors swirling like the diverse cultures it now represented. The fleet was more than a military formation. It was a symbol of unity and a testament to Eric's vision. Each ship, a blend of technologies from different races, highlighted the potential of cooperation over conquest. With the alliances solidified, Eric's role shifted from diplomat to overseer, ensuring that the treaties were honored and the mutual benefits were realized. His work was cut out for him, as old prejudices and fears threatened to undermine the fragile peace. But with Shirella's unwavering support and his own reputation as a unifier, Eric navigated these challenges with a deft hand. Back in the council chamber, Eric and Shirella unveiled the Galactic Integration Initiative, a comprehensive plan to integrate the economies, technologies, and cultures of the Alliance members. This is not the end, but a new beginning, Eric announced, addressing the Assembly. A beginning of an era where strength is drawn from our differences and where no world stands alone. The initiative was ambitious, involving exchange programs, joint research projects, and cultural festivals. Eric was particularly passionate about the education reforms, where young beings from different races could learn about each other's worlds, fostering understanding from a young age. As these programs took off, Eric received messages from Earth. Humanity was watching, their interest piqued by the possibilities unfolding across the stars. Inspired by Eric's achievements, Earth governments began to advocate for a more active role in galactic affairs. Eric's story had sown the seeds for Earth's emergence as a spacefaring society. In a move that surprised many, Eric invited representatives from Earth to the Zathari capital. The meeting was historic, marking the first time humans walked the halls of the Zathari Council not as subjects, but as equals. The discussions were fruitful, leading to Earth joining the Galactic Integration Initiative as a full member. The alliance grew stronger over time, its success echoing across space. Other civilizations, once skeptical, now sought to join, drawn by the stability and prosperity the alliance promised. Eric's vision was reshaping the galaxy, turning old enemies into partners in progress. During a quiet moment, Shirella joined Eric on the observation deck. "You have changed much, Eric of Earth. Not just here, but out there." She gestured to the stars. "You have taught us that the galaxy does not need to be conquered with force, but won with wisdom and unity." Eric looked at the thriving joint fleet, a blend of so many worlds. "It was never about changing the galaxy alone," he replied. "It was about proving that anyone, regardless of their origin, could change the galaxy together." As Eric prepared for the next assembly, where he would share his experiences and insights, he thought of his journey, a journey that had taken him from being an abducted athlete to a galactic diplomat. He had bridged worlds not through the might of arms but through the strength of alliances. The final session of the council was broadcast across the galaxy, watched by billions. Eric spoke not just as a leader, but as a visionary. "Let this be our legacy," he declared, "that we turned away from isolation and fear and chose a path of collaboration and hope. Let us build this legacy together, as a galaxy united not under one banner, but many." The applause that followed resonated not just in the chamber, but across the cosmos. Planets lit up with celebrations, and the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. Eric's legacy was not defined by the power he wielded, but by the unity he inspired. As the assembly adjourned,